Hi, I'm Matt Adams, Superintendent, West Des Moines Community Schools. I'm excited to share with you that this November, our school district is proposing a $135 million bond to support our students and benefit our community. You might hear it called a bond referendum, a GO bond, or a general obligation bond. They're all kind of the same thing. Why you probably haven't heard about this before is because for over 20 years, West Des Moines Community Schools have not gone to the public to ask for a GO bond. So you might be asking yourself, well, why now? Why are we seeking a general obligation bond when we haven't had to do that for over 20 years? Well, this is how I would explain it to you. Our buildings are getting old. Our buildings are tired. And anything, just like our own homes, when we use them and use them a lot, they wear out. Things wear out. And that's kind of our responsibility to ensure that we continue to upkeep. We also have done a pretty extensive study on our buildings in the last 18 months, and we started to develop a standard for our buildings, a standard that you would appreciate. I think when you bring your children to school each and every day, you have in your mind's eye the type of facility that they would be entering and what that classroom should look like. And so we've developed that standard, and we recognize that we need to bring several of our buildings up to that standard. You know, I hear stories about, and I've seen them myself, and you probably have too, where duct tape is holding carpeting down, and where, you know, just the edges off of cabinetry are missing, and, you know, names are carved in desks. Maybe even names who now their children are using those desks. And so we recognize that after that 18-month study, there's quite a bit to do. I've been making the joke, there's an old country western song, there's more month than money. And what we started to recognize is it was going to be very difficult for us to get back to that standard in a timely way without the proposal of a GO bond. And so we know that by proposing this GO bond, we can expedite that list and bring everything up to a standard in a more responsive way than what we could without that proposal. And since several of us might not have experience around general obligation bonds and just kind of how school finance works, I just wanted to take a minute and talk about it. Certainly not a course on school finance, but I think this is important to understand because I've heard things like, well, Matt, how can we make cuts in our budget yet have opportunity to build things? And that's a great question. Typically, the lion's share of monies that come into schools due to our enrollment, so when certified enrollment comes in October, we get a certain amount of money per student, and then of course property taxes, your home valuation from residential to commercial to agriculture. That's the general fund. And that's a very large fund. About 80% of that fund actually goes to salaries, actually goes to benefits, really is how we pay our people. Those wonderful teachers and staff members within our buildings, they're paid out of the general fund. The other 20% goes to keeping the lights on, filling the buses with diesel fuel, all the operational costs, curriculum, and those kinds of materials. So that 20% gets eaten up pretty quick. There just really isn't room within that budget to do construction projects and capital improvements. And as a matter of fact, there's some legalities with how you can use your money. Those types of expenditures can come out of PEBBLE, which is the physical plant and equipment levy, and the SAVE, which is kind of that 1 cent sales tax. But when I think about what we're trying to accomplish, there's not enough. There's not enough within those to accomplish what we want to do. So, you know, for instance, if I were to have something major happen in my home, or I needed a new vehicle and I might not be able to kind of cash flow that myself, I would go out and get a loan. And then I would be able to pay that loan off over time. Well, with a $135 million GO bond that we're suggesting to the public, that's how we would pay it back over time, through property taxes. So what are we trying to accomplish with all of this? I appreciate everybody that responded to the survey that we gave this summer. Overwhelmingly, 2,500 respondents, overwhelmingly, you wanted us to focus on the classroom. The classroom where the teacher and the student come together and the magic of learning happens. And we heard that loud and clear. So the lion's share of the proposed bond referendum will be in the schools. Everybody will basically get touched by this bond referendum. We're going to modernize and update our classrooms where instruction occurs. Included in that is the mechanicals and the electricals and the plumbing. So there are a lot of systems that are kind of at end of life. There's times where your child might come home and say, boy, it was hard to learn today. It was too hot, or it was too cold. Can I wear my coat? Or boy, the lights kind of flicker and make noises, and that was kind of distracting to me. And so there's a lot of things we can do in the buildings to prevent distraction for students learning. The other thing that we're trying to accomplish with this is provide more access to our students. Our students are so involved in so many different activities, from extracurricular to co-curricular, from the fine arts, activities, athletics. We want our students to be involved in as many things as possible, and we need more space in order to do that. Another consideration is how we're going to attract and retain quality staff and our wonderful families. I want to be the school of choice. I know families have choices where they send their children to school. I want to be that school of choice. I also want to be the employer of choice. I want staff to come to West Des Moines Community Schools and feel like they have the resources to execute on high levels of learning. So what does this mean as it relates to the bond referendum? I know that this is going to have widespread impact. Nearly all of our students, since we're touching most of our buildings, will have this impact. And it's going to impact student outcomes. And that's really what we're here for, is to ensure a great school experience for all of our children and get tremendous outcomes to fulfill your hopes and dreams for your children. And lastly, I want us to shift the paradigm about the resources that we have here in West Des Moines Community Schools. For instance, we're proposing a performing arts center, a 500-seat performing arts center, to be at Indian Hills. But it's not Indian Hills' Performing Arts Center, it's a district resource. And we really need to start shifting our mindset around the resources that we have. We have such active and involved students that we need to take advantage of all the resources so all K-12 students have access and the ability to participate in whatever it is that they want. You might be asking yourself, well, Matt, how does this affect my tax rate? And that's a great question. We're proud to have the lowest tax rate in the metro area. What we're proposing, the $135 million bond, would increase your taxes by $1.52. So therefore, with the successful passage of this bond, your tax rate would be $13.74 per thousand. So what does that mean for a resident here in West Des Moines as it relates to that tax increase? An average home of about $300,000, that would be an impact of $17.41 a month. I've jokingly told people, just don't go to Starbucks twice. Go and get a cup of coffee rather than Starbucks, and you'll have it covered. So my responsibility is to ensure you are an informed voter. As a community member and as a parent of a student served by West Des Moines Schools, I want you to be informed, and I want you to go to the polls on November 4th. We'll be asking you, consider an investment in our schools today, so together we can build a brighter future for tomorrow.